I want to welcome our audience to this L.E.A.R.N podcast. It is in these podcasts that L.E.A.R.N wants you to meet experts that can help you in your work as school leaders or perhaps partners in the education landscape. The topic for this podcast is outdoor environments with a focus on reducing the heat created by surfaces, and our guests are Jeff Terry, Vice President of Corporate Social Responsibility and Sustainability, and Jennifer Keegan, Senior Director of Building and Roofing Science, both with GAF. On the L.E.A.R.N website, you will find on the research page, under the COE of Sustainability and the element of Outdoor Environments, research in this area being discussed, along with potential resources to access. Jeff and Jennifer, I want to welcome you to this L.E.A.R.N podcast. It is really good to have you here to speak with us about this important topic.
Thanks.
And I know each of you has extensive research and work backgrounds in this area, specifically with roofs and surfaces. Would you please share with the audience some of that background and experience? And we'll go to you first, Jeff.
Alrighty, David. Hey, thanks, and appreciate the opportunity to be with you here today. You know, I've worked in this space of sustainability and climate impacts for about 30 years, focusing on everything from root causal impacts to climate change to ultimately outcomes associated with that, and certainly a lot of attention focused on extreme heat and kind of material implications and impacts on extreme heat.
And Jennifer?
So my background's a bit different from Jeff, which is why we complement each other so nicely. I grew up in the building enclosure world, so I worked on the outside of buildings and schools. So I spent 20 years as an enclosure consultant, and 6 years ago came over to GAF and have been leading the charge with the building science team to help design community and owners really figure out the best strategies for their buildings.
Nice. And so you guys have been doing this for about 60 years combined, it sounds like. And in that time, I'm assuming you've worked with a lot of districts. And so, right, I know that always shocks you. The older we get, the more we realize, man, we put a lot of time into this work. And so I know you've worked with a lot of different districts, perhaps even corporate organizations. So you've done a lot of work around this, and because of that, you know the research really well. But in the amount of time we have dedicated to this, we can't possibly cover all that research, and especially in and around the impact of heat on outdoor surfaces. Though I'm really excited to hear about the work you've been doing in this space. So if you wouldn't mind, share some of your key insights with the audience around the research that's out there.
So really, this will be just a high level with some of the investments that GIF has made in schools and our communities to showcase the power of addressing urban heat islands and elevated temperatures, and how together we can improve the quality of lives. And so this is really important because we want a better future for our children. We want to live in a better world. We want to leave things better than we found them. So how do we shorten that runway for this next generation? We start them off in healthy environments designed to get them excited to learn. And we inspire them and get them connected to the world around them. And the projects that we're going to share with you do just that. The students are engaged, the community is engaged, and together they created this inspired environment to play and learn, all while improving the environment around us and contributing to healthy lifestyles in their communities. And there's this ripple effect that extends really far beyond just a refreshed playground or some ready-made science experiments around measuring temperature reductions that are possible on pavements and rooftops. I mean, which are really interesting, but it's so much more than that, because the students are measuring how much longer they can play outside without running in for water or taking shade breaks. And the community is measuring the reduction in heat-related emergency room visits. So our students get to see firsthand the human impacts of environmentally conscious design, which is really what we want, for them to be immersed in this healthy environment that has a positive impact on the world around them. So today we're grateful to have this opportunity to share some of the research with these schools and the design community, and hopefully inspire some teams to consider how cool pavements and cool roofs can be leveraged for inspired design that can not only be visually creative, but also contribute to a positive impact in new and existing schools.
Right.
Yeah, there's just to go maybe even a level deeper into that. You know, when we look at, I always like to say, when you look at a satellite image of an urban center, you see two primary objects. You see roofs and you see roads. And one of the areas of focus that we have is really focused on, when we're looking at roofs, how can we increase the reflectivity of that surface that actually does a number of things, that actually reflects that light, that keeps it from penetrating that heat energy that kind of radiates down into the building and increases the energy efficiency of the structure, which certainly helps schools and buildings and homes. But then also ultimately, and what we're going to talk a little bit more about today, is kind of on those hard surfaces on the ground, on those playgrounds, on those roads, when we can increase the reflectivity, and not necessarily by lightening surfaces, by really focusing on bringing technology that addresses that infrared radiation heat that does not impact thermal comfort. We can actually see significant improvements, to Jen's point, not just at the surface temperature level, but also at the ambient air level. And there's some great research,
Right.
new research that's just come out that we've been a part of over the last couple of years that really demonstrates this.
And I got to assume that has such a significant positive impact in so many layers in a community or in a school itself, right?
It does, absolutely, because when you can reduce the surface level of that temperature, what we saw in our research, by on average on sunny days by 10 degrees, and then ambient temperatures by upwards of 3.5 degrees, that's going to provide an environment where kids can learn through play, and then actually activate their bodies and bring that back in. And there's great research out there that demonstrates an active body, an active mind has positive academic outcomes associated with it.
Absolutely.
Jeff, I'd love to share a little bit about the CAE school effort, because that really brought the students into the challenge that the school was facing, and they brought them into the solution, and how they even wove all of these efforts into the curriculum.
Yeah, the SAE school is an incredible institution down in Atlanta, Georgia. We've been partnering with them for a couple of years now. Really, the foundation of their program and their curriculum is sustainability at its core. It's an awesomely environmentally performing building in every aspect of it. So what we started to do a couple of years ago when we worked with them is we engaged with them to understand their hard spaces outside of the building. And then, kind of, as you all know, in Atlanta, the southern part of our country, especially over the last number of years, we've had extreme heat. So we really partnered with them, looked at their entire playground area and said, okay, how can we bring this DuraShield solar reflective pavement coating and use it in a way that does a couple of things, that improves the performance from a cooling and heating perspective, increases actually the maintenance cycle of that property at the same time. But then, because we can mix upwards of 54 different colors in this material, we can make an activated play center where the kids actually came in and helped design, and ultimately created and helped to apply the coating to the whole outdoor centers space as well.
Oh. Yeah, just be careful with the child labor laws, right?
Well, we
but
actually
that is really
they
pretty special, right? Because
do it.
yeah, you were there too. Yeah, but yeah, the way you can engage kids in understanding the impact of this, and the more our urban centers grow, and they are growing, the more they grow, what I see is this need to figure out ways in which to reduce the heat impact, so that our kids can enjoy that outdoor environment and can be engaged in that environment for a longer period of time. And so I think that's really powerful. Now, if a district wanted to engage in this work, and because that's where our focus is, even though you've done a lot of work with communities as well, But if a district wanted to engage in this work, what would be some of those kind of what I would call opportunities or predictable positive outcomes? And you kind of said a little bit, but if you want to expand on it,
Sure.
that they'd want to make certain they communicate. In other words, as they're getting ready to do this work, they want to communicate to parents and kids and to their internal staff. This is why we're doing this. What would be some of that you'd want to make sure they communicated?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, David, to that point and to that question is, we can help create kind of hard spaces to actually be much cooler and safer for them, because of that cooling. One, when you get extreme heats upwards over 85, 90 degrees, you're going to see those surface levels increase in temperature. That increases kind of burns potentially. Ultimately, these applications, this pavement coating, solar reflective pavement coating, actually reduces the surface level of that temperature. Through the research that's now been done out there as well, we can see up to the 6-foot point or 2-meter mark that we're actually able to reduce ambient air temperatures on average by about 2.1 degrees Fahrenheit, and on extreme hot days upwards to 3.5 degrees Fahrenheit. And that may not sound like a lot, but that's a significant kind of cooling implication associated with just addressing kind of the pavement that's under their feet. We've had a lot of incredibly quantitative or qualitative inputs from community members and schools where we've used this technology to help improve the playgrounds, basketball courts, tennis courts, the whole area in which we've applied these coatings in the past. I think the other benefit that municipalities,
and I got to imagine this.
Sorry.
Oh yeah.
I was saying the other benefit associated with this, David, is at the school and at the municipal level is it doesn't just benefit the kids. It actually, because it helps to cool the surface and bonds with the surface, it actually maintains the lifetime of the substrate of that longer. So it allows municipalities to let their dollars work a little bit harder for them and longer for them, so they're not having to deal with maintenance situations on those hard spaces as frequently.
Nice. And I got to imagine when you do this in tandem with trees and grass surfaces, and then you add this as a component to that on your hard surfaces, you're having even a larger impact on that totality of heat reduction. So I got to imagine that's a real positive impact.
Well, and then you layer on a cool roof with it as well. And now you've got all the horizontal surfaces contributing to a cooler environment as well. Or, putting those grasses up on the roof and creating that garden roof space.
That's right.
And some folks are starting to do that, right? And
yeah.
so they're just, these are layered concepts, I guess is the point, right?
Yeah.
It's like, sometimes people want to look for a singular solution. It's like, there are layers to this. And I think that's really important as part of the communication.
That's right. That's such an important point. Just like we look at a building as a system, we look at outdoor spaces as a system as well. We are as big of proponents of increasing green spacing and tree cover and shading as much as anything. We also recognize there are hard surfaces that our schools and our communities have today. We need to find solutions for that as well. So this is entirely about what is the full toolkit available to municipalities and to institutions to really draw from and utilize to provide the most livable and best performing environment for the kids and for the community members that are a part of those spaces.
Yeah, great message, Jeff and Jennifer. Now, if there's a district that you would want to highlight as doing some remarkable work, and maybe you want to highlight a community, because I know you're doing some, but I'll let you choose in this area, that what I want to do is be able to pinpoint that for our audience, district leaders, to be able to go and see who would that be.
So who I would recommend right out of the gate would be the incredible work that the LA Unified School District has been doing. We've been working with them for, 6 to 8 years. We've helped to bring cool surfaces to more than 80 schools in the LA Unified School District. We've done tremendous kind of broader community covering, if you will, with solar reflective pavement coatings and technology that have included schools. In Pacoima, California, there's a large 18 square block initiative that has taken place. It's called the Cool Community Pacoima Project that really is focused on and has been the foundation of a lot of the research that we've talked about here this morning. But ultimately, schools are such a nodal point of community. The focus on schools and how to improve schools is so critically important to us. And the LA Unified School District is doing so many incredibly important work as it relates to pavement coating, solar reflective pavement coating, to green spacing, to shading. They're really a great model district.
And talk about a location that has a significant amount of heat to
Oh, yeah,
overcome. So,
yeah,
That's right.
we look in the, Atlanta's in Texas and, these Arizona, where we've got these really intense pockets of that southern heat and exposure. You don't need to be in an dense urban area to really see the benefits of these cool
right,
pavement products.
right. And what are some of the stories, Jennifer, that you have heard, or Jeff, you've heard related to this? And that's kind of the anecdotal thing, right? It's kind of its impact on students. Is there a story or two you might want to quickly share?
Yeah, I'll touch on one real quickly. It's this. I mentioned Pacoima here in California. Um, we were talking with the Parks and Rec head in Pacoima, California, where they use kind of the school and the playground right next to the school as a part of kind of leagues that they put on. Which typically is very small in the summer because the heat is so extreme out here. And since we've been able to kind of bring this technology to the community, they've been able to increase their league participation throughout the summer because they can actually play games outside. So this is something that was shared with us last summer. I was like, ooh, that's fantastic. It's a,
That,
a
yeah.
unintended consequence and benefit associated with kind of activating more people in the community, creating spaces that allow more people to come together and cultivate and build that community, and doing it in a safe way.
Right. Isn't that amazing? I mean, as a business model, you're just simply trying to find ways to reduce the heat presence, right,
Yeah,
in people's lives. But the impact of that is always unique,
it
and
is.
community obviously is a part of that. So that's really special. Now we don't have much more time, but is there anything you'd like to add that we haven't had a chance to talk about here?
I would just make sure to take a look at some of the photos
Mm.
of these, because it's really hard to explain. You think cool pavement coatings, gosh, why would I paint my streets white? That would be really glaring and distracting. But we have a whole spectrum of colors, like even the black. When they coated, worked in that neighborhood in Pacoima, that 18 square block, the streets were coated with that solar reflected pavement. Like, it looks like the road,
Mm.
you would never know, but it's a
Right.
dramatic temperature difference. And there's this full palette of colors. So when you look at where the playground started and where it finished, gosh, the logos, the local artists, the creativity that the students could bring in there really just revitalized the space, and it made the kids excited to go outside and to be outside and to engage. So just be inspired by the options, and don't kind of think that a cool pavement coating needs to be white and reflective, because that's couldn't be further
So you
from the
could
truth.
do your school colors, right?
You could
You
do
can
your
That's
do
school
right.
all
colors,
sorts of things.
absolutely.
There you go. That's pretty neat. And so, if a district was really interested in engaging in that, maybe seeing some of that, what's the website they would go to see some of those pictures?
Our pavement coating technologies. I think one thing Jen said incredibly well there was, not all pavement coating technologies are the same. When you can essentially build into the formula of a pavement coating a bonding kind of material that doesn't lay on top of the surface, actually interacts with that surface. And the technology in itself
Wow.
helps to reduce that long wave infrared light or radiation light. It's not just about reducing kind of decreasing the color of the surface. It's really about kind of interacting kind of with that beyond the visible life situation. So,
and extending the life of the pavement coatings, which Jeff touched on, but to put it in perspective, those pavement coatings are used in New York City for the bike lanes and the bus lanes. So talk
Mm-hmm.
about durability and really heavy traffic loads, way more than we would see at a school. So
Yeah.
expect this coating to really help extend the life expectancy of the horizontal surfaces at the school.
That is so important to hear and note as you're doing construction or anything you're doing with surfaces. Now, if they wanted to be able to contact you for this deeper conversation, what is that contact information?
So if you're looking for I think the building science team is buildingscience@gaf.com, and we can help
Okay.
you out with that. And sustainability, you guys have a different email address as well.
it's sustainability@gaf.com.
All right. Wonderful. All right. Well, I want to thank you both for being a part of this important work of supporting our students in schools, and I want to thank you for your participation in L.E.A.R.N podcast.